All right, today we're going to be talking about fueling in your racing. So there's different kinds of fueling for running, right? You can fuel in your training, you can fuel for recovery, or you can fuel during your race. So those are really the three kinds of ways that you can incorporate nutrition into your running and have it be applicable. Now, I'm not here today to talk to you about your diet in your training and in your recovery, at least not yet. That's quite an involved topic. And it goes pretty deep. It's kind of hard to do in a single one-off training. But what we can do is talk about how your intake of calories and other micronutrients during your actual race and in the moments and even really in the day leading up to it can dramatically impact your performance. So I'm going to share with you the principles about how to properly fuel during your race. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you your take-home points. But then what I'm going to do is, during the research of this, putting some slides together for you, I actually came across this product that I'd never heard of before. So I've worked with a lot of nutrition companies. I used to work for GU. You probably know GU, the gels. They make other things, waffles and drink mix. I worked for Huma. I worked for Noon Hydration. I worked for Sport Beans. I worked for Picky Bars, all sport nutrition brands. And so I've seen what's worked in practice. I've seen what people like. And then in my training in sport medicine and nutrition and exercise physiology, we also learn, the metabolic pathways that you want to maximize in order to achieve a result. So if my voice sounds a little hoarse, it's because it is. I just ran a 50-mile race and that was just a little while ago. So I'm a little bit just tired right now, but I'm going to share this with you because this is awesome stuff. And I really think that a small amount of information here is going to give you the framework that you need in order to know how to fuel in your race. Now, I'm not going to tell you the exact products to use because everybody's different and it depends on your training and it depends on what you like. But I am going to give you the principles that you can use in order to really help yourself. All right. So fueling in racing is our topic today. We're going to go through actually a pretty cool little product that I've never tried even, but I've looked at and I'm just going to tell you about it because it's pretty cool. And then after we do that, I'm going to take you through your key take-home points that this product addresses some of, and whether you decide to try it or not, you'll kind of have both things to play off of here. So, all right. Do you remember these guys here? These are the three men who were highlighted in Nike's Breaking 2 project. And if you're not familiar with the Breaking 2 project, they basically used every piece of science that they possibly could in order to help these guys get under the 2-hour marathon. And they were chiefly looking at Eliud Kipchoge here. So here's the poster basically for what these guys were trying to do. Trying to break 2 hours, and they did everything that they possibly could. Here's a couple of things that they did. One of them was they used a Tesla electric car, right? You don't want to put smog into their face, but they had the car pace them. And if you look at this picture here, there's a laser on the ground right in front of them that was projected from the car onto the ground, and it paced them exactly to 1:59:59. So they had that. They also used a new shoe that Nike had come out with specifically for this attempt. And the shoe is supposed to apparently be the most basically aerodynamic. It had a carbon fiber plate in it. It was supposed to be the most efficient marathon shoe and to cut, I forget what they claimed, but like 1 or 2% off of your time. Then they did this delta formation, which was scientifically the best way to reduce air resistance on Kipchoge. So the guys in front of him would cut the wind behind him, and they even use a pacer behind him because there's kind of when the wind goes around you, it kind of creates like this backwards sucking force, and they have a pacer behind you to even absorb that. So they did everything possible. Now, one thing that they also tried was a new kind of fuel. This is why I'm bringing this fuel up, because it's going to apply, some of the principles are going to apply to what you do, regardless of whether you use this product or not. I want to show you that when some of the greatest minds in the world are trying to get a guy to run under 2 hours in the marathon, and they're giving it everything they got, they applied some of these principles that you can apply as well. Okay, and here are some of them. Now there's this sports drink company, right? And they say that they view themselves as kind of a technology startup, not even a nutrition company. They like to compare themselves with Tesla because they're not coming at it from a nutrition point of view, but a delivery point of view. They're not giving the athletes any kind of special fuel. They're just delivering it in a way that kind of hacks the body. And if you know how to hack through this limitation in the body, whether you use to hack it or not, you'll know what it is, and then you can adjust your fueling appropriately. All right. So Martin is the name of the company, and I'm going to read off to you here from this is from a Sports Illustrated article. Now, I like to use peer-reviewed research that I'm presenting to you guys, but there's no peer-reviewed research that I could find on this product. So we're just going to go with an article on this product, and you can take what you like from it. So new and advanced approach to solving the glycogen depletion issue is what they're trying to do, right? They're acknowledging that the issue in marathoning is that you run out of sugar. All right. So if you know what hitting the wall isn't just the feeling that you get when you kind of run out of steam, because then you could say you hit the wall in even a mile race or something. And that's different. What hitting the wall really is the point in your race where you run out of stored sugar. Now you store about 90 minutes, maybe up to 2 hours worth of intense aerobic exercise. That's the amount of energy there is you can store that as a complex form of sugar in your liver, in your muscles, and it's called glycogen. You've probably heard of this before. Now, what's really cool about glycogen is it doesn't take that much oxygen to turn it into energy. Fat, on the other hand, you have an abundant, even me, a guy who's got 3.7% body fat, very skinny. I've got enough fat on me to run across the country and run back. Not saying I have the energy or the stamina, maybe I do, I don't know. But you have enough fat on your body to fuel basically anything. The problem is when you're using fat, it takes 4 times the amount of oxygen to turn it into energy. So the great thing about stored sugar is that sugar takes way less way less oxygen to turn into energy. Therefore, you get a lot of quick energy, which is great for running. But when you run out of sugar, you have to start using fat instead. And when you use fat, you have to slow down a lot because you need 4 times the amount of oxygen, right? So the problem with fueling on race day is that you might run out of sugar. If you're running a marathon or above, you're going to run out of sugar if you're running fast and if you're not fueling. But by ingesting some calories, especially sugar, what you're able to do is instead of running out of sugar here, now you can push the wall back and run out of sugar here. So instead of running out at mile 20, you run out at mile 25. And therefore you're only hitting the wall for 1 mile. Or you can push it past the finish line and then you never run out of sugar. You never hit the wall. You get tired. You're pushing yourself mentally. You're hitting the wall like you would in a 5K or 10K, but you're not really, I put it air quotes, hitting the wall because that means running out of sugar, pushing that back. That's what we're trying to accomplish in race day fueling. And that's it. The other things might be hydration. That's really important, sure. That varies a lot depending on your fitness level, the conditions, your electrolyte level. That's important as well. But the way that you're going to fuel is going to kind of address those anyway. On a really hot day, of course, hydration is going to be much more of a big player. But here we're talking about fueling, not hydrating. We're talking about fueling. All right. So these guys know this. They know this company. They knew that what needs to be done is mitigate that running out of glycogen that happens. And so what they did is they tried to do it with fuel that was just simple ingredients. They didn't want to get crazy technical and go through the lab and make a crazy thing. They wanted to just get the sugar into your body and do it efficiently. And so I'm going to read this here for you. In the 1960s, the simple mix of sugar and salt and water to make a sport drink was a major turning point in sport hydration. Over the years, some problems have come up though. Like when an athlete takes a normal sports drink like Powerade or Gatorade, if there's too much sugar in it, the time it takes to pass from the stomach to the intestine is slowed. Now, that's really important because if it's true that you're going to run out of sugar, isn't the solution to just eat as much sugar as you possibly can and then you won't run out? Well, there's a problem there. If you take sugar and you just dump it in your stomach, it's going to sit there because it's too concentrated for your body to move it from your stomach to your intestine, which is where absorption happens. So there's a problem. There's kind of a maximum rate of absorption that you can have. Now, we're going to come back to that because that's a key takeaway for you. There's a maximum rate of absorption, and I'm going to share with you one way that you can hack that and actually get more. If it sounds crazy, it's because it is, but we know how to do it, and I'm going to share it with you. But this company was super cool because what they did was they hacked it. You drink this drink, and when it goes in your stomach, it's a liquid, but when it interacts with the stomach acid in your stomach, it turns into a gel, little globules of gel. Now that's really cool because now you don't have to, your stomach doesn't have to absorb all the sugar. It just absorbs these little globules where the sugar is inside of. And so your stomach doesn't even really know it's emptying out all that sugar. And you're getting more sugar into your small intestine than you could if it were dissolved in a liquid or in a food form. Does that make sense? So how this company explains themselves, I took this all directly from their website, is that they're trying to get as much glucose and fructose into your intestine as quickly as possible. Now, here's one of your main takeaways. Glucose and fructose, all right? So imagine that there's this highway leading so you take in food, it goes to your mouth, to your stomach, to your intestine, then it goes to your blood, and then it goes into your muscle. Okay, those are the steps. Your digestive system, then your blood, then your muscle. Now there's only so much glucose that you can absorb in a given amount of time. Now, I think, I can't quote this exactly, but the number is something like 100 calories worth of glucose in about 15 minutes. Now, that may be up or down. That's about right, though. Now, what happens is if you try to ingest that, okay, you have this maximum rate of absorption. If you try to ingest more, it's just going to sit there, regardless of what happens, regardless of who you are. So imagine that there's this highway from your stomach to your muscles where sugar is just dumping. And on that highway, you've got 5 cars. And the cars are like zoom, and they're all carrying trunks full of sugar. You have a maximum amount that you can put on that highway, and that's 5 cars. No matter how much you eat, no matter what you do, only 5 cars allowed on the highway. Now, that's glucose. But guess what? Next to the highway, there's this little skinny dirt road. And the dirt road can only hold 2 cars. And it goes a little bit slower. And that dirt road is called fructose. Now, fructose takes a different pathway to get to your muscles, to get into your blood, to get to your muscles really, than does glucose. For example, fructose doesn't have to go first through your liver, where glucose does. So you have a highway, and then you also, instead of just stopping there and maxing that out and saying, well, that's the best I can do, you make a little dirt road as well. And you can also take in fructose in your race, and then you get the most delivery of sugar to your muscles. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit how to do that, and I'm going to share with you a couple of products that do it. I won't make you wait, actually. There's a couple of products who use it. It's called a dual delivery pathway. Some of them use it, like a Goo Energy uses a dual delivery pathway. Scratch, is it Scratch? No, sorry, not Scratch. Tailwind uses a dual energy pathway. And when they say dual energy, that's exactly what they mean. Glucose and fructose. So here's another picture for you. This picture is really cool because what it shows is that tube down the top, that's your esophagus, or it's like where you're eating food and it goes in your stomach. Now, in the stomach, you see those circles. Those are globules of gel. This is for that product again, right? Now, the globules get to move into your small intestine, which is that tube. And you see the first little blob that's kind of broken in half there. That's because digestion really happens in your intestine, not in your stomach. So in the intestine, now that little globule is broken down and all the sugar that was in it is released and you have a lot of sugar in your intestine that you couldn't have got there that quickly if you put it in through your stomach. So you're hacking the system. And then all those little things that you see around on the outside, that's the actual absorption of the sugar and the nutrients into the blood, okay? So that's how that product works. I'm not a proponent of that product. I've never tried it. But I will say this, it looks pretty cool. Here's some guys who have tried it. This is Kenenisa Bekele, arguably the greatest distance runner of all time. He's at least up there, one or two. Here he is setting a world record at the time in the marathon, and he was the first puppet for this company to use this drink. He was the first one. Unfortunately, when he had some complications, he was tripped, he got injured. He never really got to set a world record while using this, but he was a believer in it and he was using it. Other guys like Mo Farah, arguably, again, one of the greatest. Some people say the greatest. I don't. I put him up there. Distance runners of all time, right? Now, he uses this. He's an elite level marathoner now. But check this out. Who's this guy? Eliud Kipchoge. Now, Kipchoge is not only the world record holder, but he's the world record holder by far and Olympic champion. And he is going for the sub 2 hour marathon again in the fall. This guy's the greatest marathoner who's ever lived. And what is he doing? Well, he's using this product as well. Now, I'm not pitching this product here, okay? Because I'm sure these pictures were, well, actually, some of these pictures were, taken for marketing. But this is taken in a race. He's actually using it in his race, which is pretty cool. So let's just look at the take-home points here, because I don't want you to run out and get this product, but I do want you to look at the science behind what they're doing, and then you can apply it. And here are your take-home points. We're going to go through each of them. All right. First is that I want you, at the end of this, I want you to take a screenshot, because these are going to change how you fuel for your race. All right. 2 meals before you go off in your race. So your race is in the morning. That would be like dinner the night before. Have an early dinner. And what you're trying to accomplish here is you want to make sure you're getting enough calories, more than enough calories, because you really, really do not want to be hungry the next morning when you wake up. So what you're doing is maximizing your calories and minimizing your fiber. The reason you minimize fiber is because you have about, at any given time, you have between 1 and 5 pounds of poop inside of your intestine. It's not poop yet, it's just stuff in there. Some of it is old stuff stuck around. Some of it is undigested food, digesting food, and then literally poop, right? And the more fiber you have, the more of that exists in your gut, in your intestine. So you want to have your meal have a lot of calories, but lower in fiber, because you're going to start moving. It's like a conveyor belt, right? You want to start moving that fiber out and pooping it out. You want to be able to poop that night or in the morning and have there not to be another conveyor belt full of fiber coming through. Now, if that's 1 to 5 pounds, it's really not 5 all that often unless you're kind of like backed up, but like 1 to 3 pounds. Guess what? 1 pound equals 2 seconds per mile. So you take out a pound from your body somewhere, and you're going to cut off about 52 seconds in a marathon. You take a couple pounds out, it may be a couple minutes. Now that's basically free time. You can't cut that weight anywhere else. You can't cut it from water loss. You can't cut it from caloric loss or body weight loss and have it translate, because there's health detriments that come with those. But if it's just fiber in the short term, one day, that's free time. So you do want to minimize your fiber. Okay, second is breakfast the day of. You're going to wake up early enough to, get some of that fiber out of you as much as you can. And then what you want to do is you want to really minimize bulk and fiber in the morning and maximize your carbohydrate. Here are some ways you can do that. Now, this is applying for the marathon. Maybe I would say this applies to the marathon and below. When you get to really long distances, your pace is slowing. You actually want to eat more regular foods if you can. And fiber is not that big of a deal. You're going to metabolize everything, and you're probably going to stop to poop in a 100-miler anyway. So this applies to marathon and below, really half marathon to marathon, okay? For breakfast, here's what I like to do, and here's how I coach people, is that you want to have basically no fiber, but a lot of carbohydrate. The best way to do that is juice. Fresh juice. Make it yourself if you can. And what juice is going to do is going to give you a lot of sugar. It's going to give you glucose. It's going to give you fructose. Fructose is fruit sugar, right? You may want to have like whatever you normally eat. You don't want to change your diet too much. Whatever you normally eat, just less of it, and add some juice. Remember, practice drinking juice in the days and weeks and months leading up to your race. So you're not doing anything new, but juice is great because there's almost no fiber in it, but you get a lot of sugar, and you're including that dual pathway. You're also getting electrolytes. You're also hydrating. It's great. Then what you want to do is 90 minutes before your race, you want to stop eating. Now, here's the reason why. It's insulin. So when you eat, your blood sugar goes up. Then insulin comes out to take that sugar and pull it into your muscles. But eventually it'll pull it into your muscles and your blood sugar will return to a normal baseline. How long does that take? About 90 minutes. So you wait 90 minutes and now your insulin is down back to base level. And that's what you want. That's very important. It's very important. That's why it's on one of your take homes. Our next point is going to piggyback off of this. So pay attention here. 90 minutes before you stop. Now your insulin's back to baseline, and that's great because if your insulin is high, it's going to take any sugar that's in your blood and just snatch it up and pull it into the muscle. And that's not good because you're going to use up all of your sugar more quickly. And then remember, when you use up your sugar, you hit the wall and you have to use fat. But if you don't have an artificially elevated insulin level, you'll still pull out sugar, but you're not going to pull it out at such a crazy rapid rate. And so you're going to burn a little bit more fat. So instead of 100% sugar, you might burn 80% sugar, 20% fat early on. And that's really important because you're going to push that wall back. So 90 minutes before your race, stop eating. Let your insulin levels come back to normal. If you want to have something, water is good. If it's hot, if you're sweating a lot, water and electrolytes is good. Like Noon, for example, is just electrolytes. There's no calories. Still tastes sweet. All right. Now, to piggyback off of that, don't eat anything 90 minutes before when the gun goes off. Don't eat anything until you're about 5K in. 5K is a rough estimate because it takes, when you start exercising at a high intensity, you're going to start moving some of that sugar that's stored in your liver. You're going to start releasing it. And so your insulin levels are going to start to go back up again, just a little bit. And they'll sort of plateau. And they'll plateau around the 30-minute mark. Now, 30 minutes, 5K, whether you're super fast or kind of a back of the packer, 30 minutes, 5K, they're close, okay? So I say wait 5K and then you take 100 calories. 100 calories. Now, what you're going to want to do is front load your calories. So let's say that I said you have about 90 minutes to 2 hours worth of stored sugar. So for a guy like who's about 5'11", and 140 pounds or so, you're going to burn roughly 100 calories per mile, regardless of your speed. It's dependent more on your weight. If that's true, you might make it to 2/3 of the way through your marathon before you're almost running out of sugar. So that what that means is basically you're going to need about 8 miles or so, roughly, worth of sugar. That's about 800 calories, okay? That you're going to need to find while you're on the course. Now, as the race goes on, your body gets to be in more and more and more trauma. And when your body's in trauma at the end of the race, it's not going to be able to digest. It's not going to be able to absorb. So a goo packet that you take at mile 5 and a goo packet that you take at mile 20, you're going to absorb more from the one at mile 5 than you will at the one at mile 20. Makes sense? Because your body's kind of in shock. It doesn't have the energy to put into digestion. It's just going to kind of sit there. And even if it makes it to your intestine, it's not going to be transported into your muscles as quickly because that energy is needed to basically keep you alive. So you want to front load your calories, which means you want to have more than half of your calories in the first half of the race. I recommend 60 or 70% of your calories by the time you hit mile 15 or so. So by the time you hit the half marathon, you want to have about 60% of your calories, and maybe more if you can. The earlier the better, okay? Front load your calories. Then make sure that however you're getting your calories, whatever product you choose, whatever food you choose, you want to have glucose and you want to have some fructose. Now, if you have a ton of fructose, if you just went on Amazon and found some powdered fructose and you drank it, you're probably going to get diarrhea or stomach problems. So you're not focusing on fructose here, but that's normally not a problem unless you try to have too much fructose. You want to have mostly glucose and some fructose. Remember the highway versus the dirt road, but you do want both. If you don't do one or the other, you're missing out on maximizing how much sugar you can get. And then this one's really cool. So since I'm on the camera right now, I can't pull this study here, but you have this stuff in your mouth, in your saliva, called salivary amylase. Now, salivary, it's coming from your saliva. Amylase basically means it cuts the sugar. What that means is that you can actually digest sugar in your mouth, whereas fat and protein and most of the sugar is digested later on in your intestine. You actually start to digest sugar in your mouth, which is why if you bite a piece of bread and you chew it, it actually starts to taste sweet. It is really satisfying. You don't want to chew your steak for 2 minutes, but if you chew some bread and you just keep chewing it, it actually tastes better. Because you can digest sugar right in your mouth, at least a little bit. So here's a little hack for you. Let's say you're running a marathon and you get towards the end, you're at mile 24, or let's say mile 23. Now it's basically too late for you to take any nutrition and have the time for it to go to your stomach, move to your intestine, go through your blood, pass through your liver, have insulin, take it into your muscles, and then use it in the muscle. You just don't have enough time. You might, but at some point, a mile to go, you don't have enough time. Anything you take is going to be moot. Kind of, but you can hack that. And the way that you hack it is by swishing in your mouth. So have you ever noticed that when say you're running a marathon and you have a packet of goo, a packet of gel or something, or even any kind of food, and you if you take it and you eat the gel and you kind of chew it up and you swallow it and you swig it down, okay, it's a little bit satisfying. But if you take a bite of that gel and you kind of swish it around and swish it and keep it on your tongue for a while and let it kind of melt, and then you wash it down, it's way more satisfying. Even if you take some Gatorade or some drink and you just chug it, or if you put it in your mouth and kind of swish it, and then swallow, it's more satisfying. Have you noticed that? It lifts you up more in your run. Now, the reason is because you didn't absorb the sugar by the time you swallow it. You didn't absorb any of it. You started the digestion process. And what it does is it sends a signal from your mouth basically to your brain that says, hey brain, guess what? Don't worry so much about running out of sugar. I got you covered. Here's some sugar. Here's the proof that we're eating some sugar. Go ahead and keep burning it. It's all right. I got you covered. That's what sugar in your mouth is doing. Now, fat is fuel too, but if you ate some fat, your brain's not going to really know it until you start to digest it. But sugar, right when it hits the mouth, your brain knows, I can relax. I don't have to conserve sugar so much. I can burn it. And that's what you want. You want to burn your sugar, assuming that you're taking some in as well, right? Otherwise, you're just going to screw yourself over. So you do need to be swallowing it as well early in the race. And hopefully, when you switch it around, you can swallow some of it as well. My point is later in a race, when it becomes difficult to take anything in, let's say you can't take anything in because you're just nauseous and you're going to throw it up. What you can do is take a swig, swish it around, spit it out. Take a gel, swish it around, take a swig, spit it out. If you have to, swallow it if you can. But if you can't, you're still going to get a benefit. The benefit is going to be you're going to absorb some of the sugar, but it's going to be a small percentage, 1 or 2%. But you're going to tell your brain, it's okay. You can keep going fast. Now, there's a study that was done on this on the track. I forget the distance. It was like 3,000 meters, but it was on the track. So it was 10,000 or less, right? And they took runners who were doing a time trial and had them actually ingest a sport drink or take a swig swish it, and spit it out. And they found that there was the performance enhancement against a control group was the same, whether they ingested it or not. And the reason they proposed was because the sugar in your mouth, on your tongue, sends the signal to the brain. It's okay to rapidly burn the sugar. It's okay. It kind of takes the edge off. Your brain thinks you're in less distress than you are. So that's a little hack that you can use right there. Now, I am going to share one final thing with you. Now, the science on this one is a little bit more controversial, so I want you to take it with a grain of salt. Because salt is an electrolyte, right? And that is protein. Now, do you need to be eating protein on your run? I think not really, but there is a case for yes. Now, if you've seen branched chain amino acids included in one of your sports drinks, this is part of the reason. Now, one of the reasons is that it will reduce muscular fatigue after your run. So that muscle soreness, delayed onset muscle soreness, will be reduced if you have some amino acids. Amino acids are proteins, building blocks of proteins, right? In your race. But we're not talking about recovery right now. We're talking about race performance. So do you want any protein in your diet when you're racing? Well, if you look at what the greatest runners on the planet are doing, they're not taking protein. You don't need it. You don't use it as a fuel when you're racing. But there is some science that shows this, that there should be a ratio of either 4-1, some studies show 3-1, but it's 3 or 4-1 carbohydrate to protein. So maybe 20 to 30% protein. Now, the reason that some of these studies have shown that it's advantageous to do that is because your rate of absorption is increased when you have a little bit of protein in there. You'll absorb the sugar more quickly. It has nothing to do with the protein. So the research studies examine whether acute ingestion of a carbohydrate and protein energy drink, as opposed to just a carbohydrate drink, during and after the completion of, they used cycling in this study, would have an impact on the inflammation markers in the blood, basically. Now, what they found is that although statistically significant, which is normally a good thing, the slight increase in inflammatory markers after exercise with the carbohydrate alone group didn't really make that much of a difference. It didn't really matter. And then further studies showed, and I think they put this here too, further studies showed that there was no difference between taking a 3 or 4-1 or just carbohydrate fuel during performance. Now, this study only looked at concentric exercise. Cyclists, they're only doing concentric exercise. Running is concentric and eccentric. We don't need to get into that now, but it's a different beast for runners. But there's been other studies that also look at eccentric exercise, and they found basically the same thing. Now, the research here is a little bit conflicting. So I want you to know that it exists, and I want you to know that it is possible that you can maybe maximize your absorption of sugar by taking a little bit of protein. Now, products that do this are Hammer Nutrition does it, Goo does it. Not all the Goos do it. Some of them do. Some of the Roctane stuff does it. Some of the Roctane gels do it, and some of the drinks do it. They add a little bit of amino acids in there. So anything that has a little bit of amino acid, it's probably not going to hurt you. I prefer to use it in recovery, not during race performance. But you be the judge for yourself on that. Okay, guys, thank you for tuning in to this training. Now, this was really cool. I want you to go back and take a screenshot of that last slide there with your take-home points, because those, however you want to structure them, whatever you decide to eat, if they fit within those confines, you're going to be good. Okay? So go back and take a look at that. Thank you for watching.